Welcome back to Home Gym Hacks and Reviews. Today I am going to show my top 2 machines and or exercises for every major muscle group. Stay tuned. Since starting Home Gym Hacks and Reviews, I have done my very best to get machines and equipment that can replicate all of my favorite exercises from my years of training in commercial gyms. And while all of these machines are not exact duplicates of those commercial grade machines, they are very close and they fit my needs perfectly in my home gym. For example, I have used nicer and more expensive pec fly rear delt machines than the Titan, but this machine fits my needs perfectly and the machine is good enough that it doesn't warrant purchasing a more expensive commercial grade model. So what makes these machines and or exercises my favorite out of all of the equipment I have? First and foremost, I think they are effective at hitting the target muscle. Secondly, and just as importantly, they don't cause me any joint pain. And lastly, they require minimal or no setup at all. And if you are deciding between any of these machines, I hope this video helps you. I am starting off with 2 awesome machines for the quads. I have had a lot of leg machines over the last 3 years, everything from the PowerTech leg press to the Squat Max MD, and I've loved them all, but these 2 are the cream of the crop for quads. I have picked up some battle wounds from lifting over the years, and my shoulders and lower back just don't do well with barbell squats. Enter the Rogue Rhino in the number 2 spot. No axial loading, minimal shear forces, and a great quad builder. If I want to further bias the quads, I simply add squat wedges. It's easy to load this machine, it has a 1-to-1 pulley ratio, and it is the most overbuilt machine I have. And the number 1 quad exercise I have is the Fettle Fitness Pendulum Squat. It is hard to describe how much I feel this machine in the quads, especially with how little weight is needed. Since getting this machine, I have switched from squatting in my Nikes to these Chuck Taylors, and it helps keep the heels down because forward pressure is applied with this exercise. This machine is fun to use. It has a 1,000 pound weight capacity, which I'll never get close to reaching, and my only regret is not getting it sooner. For calves, my runner-up exercise is the X-Mark Fitness Seated Calf Raise. I have had this machine longer than any piece of equipment in my present gym, and after 5 years, it's still going strong. A little weight goes a long way on this machine. In other words, I can't load this up with 645s like I did with some commercial grade models. I include this exercise in my calf training to target the soleus after tearing my calf muscle in a basketball game. So I find this machine as an insurance policy to work all of the muscles on the lower back of my leg. The combo of the Rogue Rhino and the Iron Master calf block give me my favorite calf exercise. The calves can take some serious weight and I can load up a Smith bar with at least 645s and perform calf raises, but that is a decent amount of axial loading, so I would much rather distribute the weight around my hips to blast the calves and save my spine and shoulders. For hamstrings, the prone leg curl comes in the number 2 spot. If I could do stiff-legged deadlifts, this machine wouldn't be in this spot, but I can't, so here it is. I really don't see that big of a difference between the way this feels compared to some commercial models. Also, it's basically a toss-up between the Iron Master and PowerTech. I have features I like for each. I like the Iron Master bench better, and I like how the Iron Master attachment touches the floor for added stability, but I think the padding is more robust on the PowerTech. Both have a 200 pound weight capacity, and both attachments are about the same price. The Titan seated leg curl, especially with the 25 or 35 pound plate hack that I've shown, is my favorite hamstring exercise. This machine feels as good as some commercial grade models for a fraction of the price. Also, it has been pretty well established the seated leg curl is a more effective hamstring exercise than the prone, and for some people it's easier on the lower back when compared to the prone, especially if the prone leg curl isn't performed correctly. The Titan has a 300 pound weight capacity and plenty of settings to get properly lined up with the machine's axis of rotation. I am going to pair the glutes and lower back together because my top 2 exercises do a great job of hitting both muscle groups at once. The reverse hyper in the number 2 spot has always been a favorite of mine. I know some people do not find value in this exercise, but it has always been beneficial for me. I saw Louis Simmons explain his inspiration for this came from the 45-degree back extension, so rather than the upper body moving, he wanted a way to move the lower body through a full range of motion, and the reverse hyper was born. It also does a great job of hitting the hamstrings, and Titan's reverse hyper is incredibly overbuilt. My number 1 glute and lower back exercise is the Bodymasters MD 216 low back machine. I got this for $500 on Craigslist, and this machine is incredibly effective and much easier to progressively overload than a hyperextension bench. This machine is far better than the standard commercial grade low back machine where you are seated and push against the pad on the upper back. However, if I didn't have this fancy machine, the PowerTech Hyper Crunch would be in the #1 spot. For abs, the Ironmaster Super Bench Pro and the sit-up attachment take the #2 spot. The bench is super easy to adjust for varying degrees of difficulty, and it's easy to add additional resistance to the sit-up by holding onto a dumbbell, by moving the bench inside of the IM2000, or even in front of the Rogue Rhino for cable pulls. The Ab Core takes the #1 spot for abs. This is another machine that is fun to use and it feels highly effective. The motion is similar to some old Nautilus and hammer strength ab machines, but it has a smaller footprint and it's much lighter. With the flip of a switch, it works great for obliques, and it can accept plates, or bands can be set up like I've done here. If you find one on Marketplace, I highly recommend it. For biceps, it's hard to beat a good old dumbbell bicep curl, which takes the #2 spot. Unfortunately, I picked up tennis elbow, and every bicep exercise is causing me pain except for one, and that one exercise just so happens to be my #1 bicep exercise, the Nautilus compound curl machine. In my review for this machine, I showed a couple of ways to replicate this exercise decently well, and Hammer Strength has a machine similar to this one, but I would take this antique over any bicep machine on the market. For triceps, my second favorite exercise is the dual crossbody cable pushdown with cuffs. This exercise has been popularized by N1 training, and it has been a great addition to my triceps training. This exercise really works best on a functional trainer, but I find a double rope pushdown to be pretty close in effectiveness. The PowerTech dip attachment is my #1 tricep exercise. Unfortunately, I don't own it anymore, but I will get another one at some point. It is one of those pieces I didn't realize how much I liked until it was gone. I find this exercise to be easier on the joints, easier to progressively overload, and better at hitting the target muscles than bodyweight dips. It has a 200-pound weight capacity, which isn't too difficult to reach, so I would normally stay in the 12 to 15 rep range. When I think of traps, Bill Goldberg in the late 90s and early 2000s comes to mind. My goal is to get 1/10 of his trap size, and the Rhino with the Ironmaster Ultimate Row Handle's neutral grip takes the runner-up spot for traps. I like the vertical line of drive rather than a diagonal line of drive, and this really hits the traps hard. The multi-press or lever gym takes the #1 spot for traps. I really like the isolateral function of the machine, as well as the neutral grip the bend and the handles offer. I've said it before, but the multi-press or lever gym is almost worth it just for shrugs. In the runner-up spot for shoulders, I really like the PowerTech Streamline Functional Trainer for the cuffed lateral raise. This can also be performed supine, and it's a great way to keep pretty consistent resistance on the delts. The cuffs remove grip being a limiting factor, and this exercise is very joint friendly. If you don't have a functional trainer, a very worthy substitute can be performed on the lever gym or most any cable system with a single pulley, as I'm showing here. My #1 exercise for shoulders is just as much a chest exercise as it is a delta exercise. I've said before my shoulders and neck don't do well with heavy overhead presses, so the incline press is a great substitute. Dorian Yates is also someone who dropped the overhead press from his routine. Honestly, it's almost a toss-up between incline presses on the IM2000, the multi-press, or the lever gym, but I've always liked the incline Smith press, and even Dexter Jackson said it was one of his favorite chest exercises. The reverse band enhances the exercise to more closely match the muscle strength curve, and the IM2000 has plenty of lockout points, and the smoothness of the machine is unmatched. An honorable mention in this category is the Y-raise, which can be performed on almost any cable system. Here I'm using the Rhino. This also targets the traps, very little weight is needed, and this is much easier to progressively overload than the TRX. Moving on to my top 2 for back thickness, I separate the back into back thickness and back width from my DC training days. The chest supported row on the Rhino with the Ironmaster Ultimate Row Handle takes the #2 spot, and it's a great alternative to some more expensive machines like the Hammer Strength Low Row. I like the knurled grip on the attachment, and with my chest supported, I can place greater concentration on the target muscle and eliminate lower back strain. The Fettle Fitness ISO row takes the #1 back thickness spot. Although one arm at a time takes double the time and effort, this is my favorite way to use this machine. I feel the lats get a tremendous contraction in this position, and again, there isn't any stress on my lower back with this exercise. For chest, the PowerTech Multi-Press Flat Press takes the runner-up spot. I've had 3 of these machines over the last 15 years, and the newest model fits me perfectly with the additional lever arm settings. I really like the isolateral feature, and I like being able to have my hands at a 45-degree angle on the handles. The weight capacity is 500 pounds, so there is plenty of room to grow. Even though the arms don't converge, I still love this machine and it's a great chest builder. My all-time favorite chest exercise is the dumbbell press. I always liked this better than the barbell bench press, and about 8 years ago, I could rock the 100s 12 times with ease. I'm not sure if I'll ever get back to that level of strength, but I won't stop trying. For me, I love the routine of taking the heavy dumbbells off the Titan shelf, hyping myself up, then kicking these into place. I've always used a 45-degree grip, and even though some people don't agree with elevating the feet, it's always worked best for me. Once I reach failure, I just chuck them on the floor. So for chest, no fancy machine, no bands, no bars, just a good old set of dumbbells. Last but not least, back width and the Fettle Fitness ISO pull down takes the runner-up spot. This was my first Fettle machine, and I've always said I think it's as good as the hammer strength model. While I like cable pull downs with various attachments, there's just something about loading the arms up with 45s and pulling with an underhand grip. The leg holds and chest pad do a good job of keeping me secure while pulling weight that is heavier than me. The machine has a narrow footprint and it can handle however heavy I load it. My number one machine for back width is none other than the Nautilus 2ST Super Pullover. I have never spent this much money on a machine, and I probably never will again at over $3,000. I tried for years to replicate this exercise with cables, but nothing compares to the real thing. Being able to take the arms and hands out of the back exercise and just drive with the elbows offers a very unique back builder. Since I got this machine, I've worked with different seat settings to finally find one that doesn't inadvertently tax the triceps. I love this machine and I love this exercise, and it's easy to progress from workout to workout with the additional 1 pound increment plate stack. And at over 800 pounds, it is my heaviest machine. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, please consider liking the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. I am an affiliate for a lot of companies, so check the description of this video, and if any of my videos or reviews have helped you, please consider using one of my affiliate links. You can find me on Instagram at Home Gym Hacks and Reviews, and remember, if your equipment lacks, I got the hacks. Take care, everyone.